How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Skyline Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Hartman, joined as always by my good friend, my co-host on the West Coast, Nick Norman. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing well today, Jack. Just super stoked to be back with you, man. NFL playoffs are in full swing. Also, just wanted to say congratulations for you having your second baby, and especially congratulations to Leah. Just like toughing through. Not the easiest thing is pregnancy and giving birth. So, got to give you and her all that credit, and just like super stoked for you guys.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, lacking sleep always, but we're happy about it. So
Mhm.
no. So things are well. I watched most of the uh, divisional round from the hospital, but that is what it is. So we ride on. So yeah, or the
And
wild card round. Excuse me, the wild card round. You
mhm.
can tell how tired I am. I'm all over the place. Um, but we're here. We're in the midway point of January. Just had the divisional round, had four awesome games. And Nick, you wanted to sort of get us going with a little thought experiment. So let's get right into it.
Yep. So Caleb Williams and the Bears, of course, just had a thriller of a game against the Rams, going to overtime, 20-17 win for the Rams. And Caleb Williams made a throw that has been going crazy on social media. Everybody who watched that game, off his back foot, throwing it to Cole Kmet, back left corner of the end zone. Just an insane throw. The scrambling ability was ridiculous. And this was a week after he did some ridiculous things against the Packers to bring them back from an 18-point deficit, I believe. 21-3, I believe, was the score at that point in time. But Caleb Williams has been insanely clutch this year, great in the fourth quarter, making insane throws. And I wanted to ask you who you would take Caleb over at this point going forward, as far as starting your franchise, starting with a quarterback, Caleb or these guys. And I'm going to give you a list of dudes, and we'll just go one at a time, whether you'd have Caleb or this quarterback to start your franchise with. Sound
Sounds
good?
good. Let's do it.
Okay. Caleb Williams or Baker Mayfield?
Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Caleb
it's
Williams.
it's tough because like starting from scratch, right? Starting a franchise. In theory, that means I've got years of runway. I'm not being dropped into an immediate win now situation.
Mhm.
Um, right now, my sort of overall view of Caleb Williams is we're in a similar situation to the first few years of Josh Allen. Like, there's a lot of talent there. There's just some stuff we got to rein in. So if I've got a runway, in that case, I'm choosing Caleb Williams.
For sure. Caleb Williams or Sam Darnold?
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams or Bo Nix?
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy?
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams or Jordan Love in the same
Caleb
division?
Williams. Caleb Williams by far. That one is not a. Not, I don't
Mhm.
have to think too hard about that one.
Caleb Williams or Super Bowl champion Jalen Hurts?
Caleb Williams. I think Williams is more versatile. I think I can. I think there can be. Again, once we get through the couple more years of ironing out some things, I think he'll be in a place where it doesn't have to be all of the parameters are perfect around him. But for Jalen Hurts, I feel like we saw this year, all of the parameters have to be perfect around him, which we thought after last year maybe he had ascended above that. But it just turns out last year was the first time that literally it was all perfect around him, and now this past year it wasn't, and we saw what it looked like.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And think about like AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, like having those weapons and churning out that offense Jalen Hurts churned out. Like I think Caleb Williams slinging the ball like that to them would be nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving on. Caleb Williams or Dak Prescott? Prescott coming off a really good season offensively, slinging the ball to Pickens and CD and the tight ends.
Yeah, I think I have to go Dak actually. I think
Okay.
I think this is the first one that you've given me that the yes, the ceiling is below what I think the Caleb Williams ceiling is, but it's close enough that to
Mm,
me it's worth taking the slightly lower ceiling with the much higher floor
mm,
right now.
mhm. Even though like the age is a big factor too, like Dak's up over 30, Caleb Williams is young. Like
Yeah,
it's a hard conversation to have, but I think it's completely fair that I think Dak's really good, really high floor professional. So I get it.
and also like we used to just have to say like, oh, Tom Brady played as long as he did. Well, he's the anomaly. It's like that's true. Aaron
Mhm.
Rodgers had decent success this year. Matthew Stafford is much older now, and he's had great success. Like I think we can safely not safely expect, but safely not be surprised if a quarterback is playing into their late 30s, which,
Mhm.
is not out of the realm of possibility.
Mhm. Next up, we have Caleb Williams or one of your favorites, Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Call me a
Man.
homer. Call me a homer. It's fine. I don't care.
Caleb Williams or the young man Justin Herbert.
Herbert.
Mm, gotcha. Caleb Williams or CJ Stroud. Coming off a brutal game against the Patriots. Both
Yeah.
of them losing.
The only reason I would take Stroud, if I took Stroud, would be because I trust him as a professional more than I trust Caleb Williams. But that said, give me Caleb Williams.
Mhm. Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. 2 years in now. Flip flop back.
Caleb Williams because I trust him to be healthy more than Jaden
Mm,
Daniels.
I'd agree with you there. Next up, we have Caleb Williams or Matt Stafford, the old man.
Yeah. So again, we've established that there is an on ramp here. Like I've got a leash. I've got time to work with. If it was like drop in, you have to win right now. I'm picking Matt Stafford without hesitation. But because I've got time, because of the age, because of how much cheaper he is, I'm going with Caleb Williams.
Mhm. Caleb Williams or Joe Burrow.
Burrow. I
Gotcha.
think I think Burrow's ceiling is higher than Williams' ceiling, and I do. I mean, we saw it last year. We saw Burrow. The
Mhm.
2024 Joe Burrow
Mhm.
was statistically one of the greatest quarterback seasons we've ever seen.
Mhm.
And if the Bengals had just managed to get into the playoffs, I think he's without a doubt the MVP
Mhm.
because he had numbers to back it up, far greater than Allen and Jackson, in my opinion. And hopefully, in this little mock exercise where I'm putting the team together, I can actually get him a competent offensive line
Mhm.
and a competent coach that will lead to better success for him, sustained success for him.
Mhm. Does Burrow's injury history not concern you? That's my only hesitation with him because he's had injuries all throughout his career with his wrist and his knee and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
That's my hesitation.
the reason that I'm not the reason that I'm not worried about it in this weird, mock exercise is because I'm planning on keeping him upright far more than the Bengals have in his career.
Mhm.
Even his torn ACL came because he was hit and bent his knee weird, right? Like that was not your typical like he's just running and all of a sudden his leg gives way, So like it's hard when there's been this many injuries to be like, oh well, they're all freak injuries because they aren't, but
Mhm.
like when you're constantly needing to stick your hand out to brace yourself as you're getting knocked over, eventually your wrist is going to give out, like that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. I forgot to add him into my list, so I'm just throwing him in here now. Would you rather have Caleb Williams or Drake May?
so I'm going to go Drake May because I think he takes care of the ball a little bit better. I think he's less reckless with the ball. I think he has already done a really good job of figuring out the balance between brain and heart when you're on the field when you're in the middle of a play. Like Caleb Williams, he makes a lot of decisions because he just that's a heart decision. Like I know I can do this, right? You know, like I'm just confident. I believe in it. You know, whatever. And sometimes they work and they're great, and sometimes they don't. And you know, it's like, hey, you should have used your brain, thrown that ball away, stuff like that. I think Drake May has done a much better job figuring that out, because they're both the same age, or not the same age, but because they're both young. You know, they came in at the same time. Drake May is also a little bit cheaper because he was the third pick instead of the first pick. You know, those sort of things put together lead me to go with Drake May.
3 left here. I think you know which the 3 are. Third one, Lamar Jackson.
Caleb Williams.
Wow, really?
Caleb Williams is younger. Caleb Williams has not had injury issues. Caleb Williams in his first playoffs has done what it took Lamar Jackson how many years getting into the playoffs to do, and that is win a playoff game. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Caleb Williams there. Also because I think he is easier to negotiate with. You know, there was lots of the, you know, rumors of like he was demanding ownership stake in the Bears, you know, and like all this and that, like, you know, whatever. Who knows how much of that was real and what wasn't. The fact is, he still showed up and played. He has management, unlike Lamar Jackson, which makes things harder to deal with there. Yeah, I'm going Caleb Williams.
The penultimate guy we got to deal with here, that'd be Josh Allen.
I'm going to do Caleb Williams. And I think right now, so here's the thing. I think right now, Josh Allen is by far a superior quarterback to Caleb Williams. However, Josh Allen still has not gotten it done. Like he still hasn't gotten it done. And I feel like every year we've got some sort of excuse for him. This year, you turned the ball over 4 times. You know, like that's I mean, I said it. I made the prediction, you know, back in the middle of December. Buffalo makes the Super Bowl, and if not, Josh Allen never will in Buffalo. Like this had to be the year. He didn't have Mahomes. He didn't have Burrow. He didn't have Jackson. He had, you know, a bunch of really inexperienced quarterbacks that he was going up against, and he couldn't do it. So I like at least the idea of, in Caleb Williams' first experience in the playoffs, he won a playoff game. If we get him more, hopefully he'll be, you know, better equipped to do that.
I get you. And top of the heap, that'd be Patrick Mahomes, no one less.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go Patrick, like you do, like, you know, that's just kind of a no-brainer. I think it would be interesting if this was like 4 years from now, but Caleb Williams if we were like able to compare 4 years from now Patrick Mahomes with right now Caleb Williams, which obviously is a dumb thing to think, but I think that many more years I would lean Caleb. Especially because Patrick is coming off of a torn ACL. But to me, he's still young enough that like it's okay. You know, they'll get that squared away, and he'll be all right.
I get you there. So the 6 quarterbacks of the ones listed, I gave you a ton of quarterbacks that you would take over Caleb Williams going into the future. Mahomes, Burrow, Drake May, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott. The guys I didn't list, they're just bums. Like
Jacoby Brissett.
Quarterback. Yeah, Browns quarterback, Steelers quarterback. Like, I don't need to ask you Shedeur or Caleb Williams. Like, we don't need that.
Yeah.
So there's 6 quarterbacks who you would take over Caleb Williams going forward. So that would put Caleb Williams at 7th, which is an amazing spot to be in, I think, for him being in his second year after that first year of Caleb Williams that we got to experience and how low he was then.
Yeah. And again, like that doesn't mean that if I actually ranked all of the starting quarterbacks from this year, I would put him 7, because that also means I would put Josh Allen, you know, behind him, which I wouldn't. But in this experiment of we're looking to the future, basically what it is the outlook for the future for Caleb Williams, I have as 7th best in theory, 7th best in the NFL, which is
spot to be in.
If you're a Chicago Bears fan, you're ecstatic about that.
Right. And considering the NFC AFC split, the only guys who you have a brighter outlook in the NFC are Dak Prescott and Jared Goff, who I think, like, if there are only two guys ahead of you in your conference, you got to feel good about it if you're Caleb Williams.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Interesting. It would be interesting to do this next year if the Bears have a similar amount of success, see how he has ascended and how other guys have descended, and what that would look like would be interesting. Well, speaking of Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears lost to the Los Angeles Rams in overtime this last week. It was the final game of the divisional round on Sunday night. It was an overtime loss for the Chicago Bears to the Los Angeles Rams. It was weather was certainly a factor in that game. With some of the snow that they were playing in, it was cold, very, very cold, like it is all over the United States right now. And the Rams got the better of the Bears. I think there were a lot of people, for whatever reason, were concerned about, will Matthew Stafford be able to handle the cold weather? Like, he didn't spend most of his career in Detroit playing outside at Soldier Field and Lambeau once a year, like, for his whole career. But hey, people come up with stuff. I don't know. But yeah, it was a very defensive heavy game. If you look at the numbers, you see both the quarterbacks threw for over 250 yards, and both teams rushed for over 100 yards, which makes you feel like, oh no, well, it wasn't really that big of a defensive game. But like, it was low scoring. The defenses showed up. The Rams defense in particular, caused quite a few turnovers. Though the Rams did fumble a little bit too. So it's just, this is one that, if you didn't know the score and you looked at the box score for the offenses, you'd think like, oh, whoever won this was like a 35-31, 38-35 type game, right? But in reality, it wasn't. It was low scoring. It was a defensive grinded out battle. Not just defensive grinded out, but offenses grinded out against the elements. And it was a great game in the end. The final, 6 minutes of the fourth quarter and then overtime were amazing, with the Rams going down the field, scoring a touchdown to take the lead. The Bears coming down, having a Herculean effort from Caleb Williams on a fourth down to tie the game up and go to overtime. And then in overtime, the Rams punted. The Bears were driving. It was looking like, oh man, Caleb's going to do it, right? All the jokes about just tell him at the start of the game that it's the fourth quarter and you're down by 10, we're seeing it again. Until Caleb throws an interception, which has been a highly discussed and debated interception in terms of the fault and the failure in that play. But regardless, it was an interception, and the Rams moved down the field, kicked a field goal to send them to Seattle for a meeting with their division foes. Nick, what were some of the big takeaways from this game for you on both sides?
I'm just far more concerned about the Rams than I originally was, just because a couple things stood out to me with the offense, specifically against a Bears defense that hasn't been good really all year. They've been very timely with their takeaways and had some great play by players that you weren't expecting to originally get that from. Nahshon Wright at corner has been really good this year, got a bunch of interceptions. The signing of Kevin Byard was really critical. He led the league in interceptions. And I think he's actually a really underrated all-time safety. He has 37 interceptions all-time, which is the second leader right now as far as active players, behind Harrison Smith with the Vikings. And so those have been two great signings. But this Bears defense has not been a great defense. I think that Allen, the defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen for the Bears, did a great job scheming up against the Rams. And I really had an issue, to be honest, with the Rams receivers getting open against the Bears corners. It felt like there weren't guys open much at all in that game against the Bears. And it felt like they were getting pressure consistently with those blitzes with few answers from the Rams offense. If I'm a Rams offense that is going to play against this Seattle defense this next week, and you have this blueprint that the Bears laid out with a Bears defense that isn't as good as Seattle's, I'd be really worried that Seattle's able to replicate what this Bears defense did. sending pressure from the slot and really covering much better with Reek Woolen playing better in this latter half of the year, I'd be really worried about Puka Nacua and the slot corner for the Seahawks, one blanking on his name, who's also very good, who both of them being able to lock down both your superstar receivers. I'd just be really worried as a Rams offense. I still think the Rams defense can do a lot of good things with their scheming with Chris Shula, but I'm really worried coming out of that game as a Rams believer in that Rams offense that has basically been walking on water all year. How are you feeling coming out of that game, Jack, about the Bears, about the Rams going forward?
Yeah, I'll talk about the Rams first. There were some decision-making things with the Bears that I was just a little scratched my head a little bit. Um, the the Rams have championship pedigree. They do. Yes, Aaron Donald isn't there anymore. Cooper Kupp isn't there anymore. But like Matthew Stafford is still there. This as part of the core members of this team that did win that Super Bowl a few years back. And Sean McVay, of course, is incredibly experienced. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, has won one of them. So I think that at this time of year in the playoffs, experience covers a multitude of sins. And I think that's kind of what we saw from this game. That said, though, you mentioned the blueprint that the Bears kind of showed Seattle. And I think Seattle kind of showed it to the rest of the league with this Rams team and their, prior meetings. It's just that Sam Darnold had issues that meant that it didn't look like this, right? Like I think about that game, that you were at SoFi. The Rams won 21-19, and Darnold threw 4 picks, and it's like, okay, that's similar score to this, and Darnold threw 4 picks, right? You at the time we talked about it, you looked at it as like, uh-oh, Seattle, and I looked at it as like, if Darnold throws one less pick, then they probably, get another field goal, right, and win 22-21, or however you want to go about that. So anyway, I would also be concerned if I'm the Rams, going to Seattle next week. You're on the road, which yes, you're on the road here against Chicago, but Seattle's just a different beast. I mean, I before the regular season ended, I picked them to win the Super Bowl. When we did our brackets, I picked them to win the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about their performance against the 49ers here in a little bit. I would be very concerned if I'm the Los Angeles Rams going into next week. There's certainly some things that you need to iron out and you need to work out on the offensive end, for sure. Defensively, like I said, I think I think we could see a very similar defensive performance from the Rams against Seattle next week. But that said, I like Seattle's receivers more than I like the Bears receivers. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp, Rashid Shaheed. I like their ability to get open better than what we saw from DJ Moore, Luther Bird III, and Rome Odunze, this last week. I like Kenneth Walker more than I like DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. I like their offensive line equally to what I like the Bears' offensive line. I think there's been flashes on both and also some, weak spots on both as well. I think it just depends. What will depend in that game is Jekyll or Hyde. Which Darnold shows up. That said, I do think Seattle's defense is good enough, far superior to this Bears defense, so they can. I think Seattle's defense with this Caleb Williams performance wins this game. Let me put it that way. So if you're the Rams, yeah, you got to be careful. You got to make sure that you are incredibly detailed. I don't think you have as much rope as you had against the Bears here. I think if you do what you did against the Bears, you're not going to overtime. You're losing in regulation by a touchdown. So that'll be interesting. Now with the Bears, we did the whole Caleb Williams thing, right? And Caleb Williams, his final stat line was 23 42, 257, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. He was not sacked at all. And he did not fumble at all. this is where I say I see a little bit of early years Josh Allen that just needs, the aggression needs to be coached, right? We need to coach when to be aggressive and when not to be. Um, I see the argument for why the interception in overtime, like the blame that needs to be placed on DJ Moore, but I also see like, you know, even long developing plays don't develop that long. I mean, he stood back there with the ball a while, and that's where I feel like, on his blame, you're in overtime, you're around midfield, you got the ball second. A field goal wins this game. Don't force that. Don't force that. Like either throw it away or step up into the pocket and try to scramble for a few yards, just to gain something, right? But it was too aggressive at the wrong time, right? Um, so that's where yes, I think DJ Moore, they both read the defense wrong. I think they both thought that the safety was dropping back on the deep ball, and then he charged, so that they both read that wrong. And DJ Moore, it kind of looked like he gave up on the route a little bit, so there's blame to go there, but Caleb needs to know, like, this is not the time to try to force something. This is not, their last possession where they were down a touchdown under a minute, and you know what? We gotta empty the clip. Whatever happens, happens, right? And so that's where I place some significant blame on Caleb Williams for that pick. Um, it's not like the ball got off of Moore's hands and got popped up in the air. Like, no, like you threw it, the defender got it, right? So that I question. The thing that I really question, though, and you mentioned Dennis Allen did a really good job in this game, and I think he did, but I texted you right after it happened on the 3rd and long. The Rams have an inexperienced kicker. They are maybe in field goal range if they're at SoFi, but at Soldier Field in snow and wind, with an inexperienced kicker, I don't think so. And so on a 3rd and long, you send the house. And you let Puka Nacua open for like a very short route, right? Like not he didn't run a 10-yard out. Like it was like a 4 or 5 yard hitch, and he only had to go and take 1 or 2 steps to get the first down. And I understand that blitz was working all day, but you and I, even when we were texting about it, like of all the guys, like Nacua is the one that you got to guarantee you've got someone in front of, right? Like, because if you stop him short, then the Rams at least need to think, do we kick the field goal or do we go for it, right? But you let them waltz into field goal range and waltz into a new set of downs so they could get even closer and take more than they otherwise would have. And that I thought was very poor. I thought that was a little bit of inexperience and something that, I think lessons get learned, right? Like we so badly want to blame everyone when things go wrong in the playoffs, when in reality it's like you got to be here to learn what to do and what not to do. To Allen's credit, he trusted his defense, he trusted his guys, and he's like, this has been working all day. I'm not going to walk away from it just because of this situation, right? Which cannot be said, I don't think can be said for Ben Johnson in a situation where you don't go for 2 at the end of regulation. I think kicking the extra point was the right decision. However, that's so counter to what he traditionally does, which is why it's hard for me to give him praise for it and not skepticism. But all in all, I think that the Chicago team they're certainly better than we've probably in my whole lifetime. There was one year that, in your lifetime as well, there was the one year that they made the NFC Championship game with Jay Cutler. But outside of that, like this is the most hope that Bears fans have had since '85. And that's something to be proud of if you're the Bears. If you're Ben Johnson, this was year 1, and let's see if it only goes up. There will be decisions that Ryan Poles will have to make, with the team and with the roster. I'd love to see them get a really dynamic running back. I'd love to see them upgrade a little bit on the defense. They have a good defense, but good is the biggest enemy of great. So like, what do they do? there. I think that'll be interesting to see as well.
I agree with you there. I also got to give a little baby shout out to Caleb Williams in that, of course, that not all interceptions are made equal. How he threw 3 interceptions in this game. One of them was to the short side flat, bad interception into double coverage. One of them was on the deep over in overtime when he just threw it when he shouldn't have because the leverage wasn't right. DJ Moore did not run like the best route, but you don't throw that throw given the situation. And then one of them was on 4th down, 4th and 2. On 4th down, you're trying to make something happen. It's going to be a turnover if it's incomplete. Caleb Williams, I think, is one of the youngest guys I've ever seen to master not just an arm punt, but an arm 4th down. The defense shouldn't do what they're doing. Where Caleb Williams threw an interception, the interception gets caught at the 1-yard line. It's 4th down. The defender should just knock the ball down and it's better field position. Caleb Williams throws some interceptions on 4th down that it's like, that interception wasn't just a bad thing, wasn't just a neutral thing. That was actually a good thing for field position to throw that interception if you're not going to complete the pass, which if nobody's open and there's pressure, it's better in that situation for field position, which is just crazy that in this second year, he's already figured that out when I don't think I've seen almost any quarterbacks actually strategically do that regularly, where he did that against the Packers, I believe, and against this Rams team, where he's just going, oh, yeah, it's 4th down. I need to make something happen. But if I throw this interception there, then you get the ball from there and not from here, from the line of scrimmage where we're at right now. And so considering how smart he is about that, it's weird how he just doesn't regard overtime throwing that throw as this is the wrong situation to throw an interception. If you can decide this is a good situation to throw this pass and it be a strategic, smart decision and not doing the same thing going, I need to not throw this football to DJ Moore in overtime on a deep over where he doesn't have a step or leverage, like just some interesting decision making, but got to give Caleb a little bit of credit for the quality of a couple of his interceptions, even though some of them are quite bad. But anyway.
Right, sure. Let's move on. Let's talk about Buffalo and Denver. This was an overtime game. We had 2 overtime games in the divisional round, which is always awesome. Denver gets away with the win over the pesky Bills, 33-30 in overtime. This one, the headline is, Allen fumbles again, and there's a play on words with that, but Josh Allen threw 2 picks. He had 2 lost fumbles in this game. And that is the biggest contributing factor to the outcome of this game. There are other contributing factors. I think one of them, you need to, if you're the Bills, you fired Sean McDermott. I think you need to seriously consider if you're going to fire Brandon Beane as well for continually not getting a great roster around Josh Allen. Since trading away Stephon Diggs, you've not really given him a great wide receiver room. Also, I don't remember the last time they had an edge that was scary. Like, the year that they had, or a couple of years they had Von Miller, he wasn't the same Von Miller. This year it was Joey Bosa, when Joey Bosa is your big acquisition so that you can bring down Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs and he can't even bring down Bo Nix in the playoffs, what are we doing there? So the Bo Nix was never sacked in this game. That's telling, but in reality, when you turn the ball over 4 times and you lose in overtime by a field goal, that is where you lost, and that comes down to Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you there that the margins here were pretty bad. Specifically, I point to the end of the first half. The Bills get the ball with, I believe, 16 seconds left, and then the kickoff after the kickoff, 13 seconds left, which 13 seconds was quite poetic if I'm remembering the time right. But they get the football. Josh Allen is running, thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to pick up this first down with my legs. Oh, yeah, I'm going to make a play here, and we can try and get in field goal range. And he fumbles the ball because he's holding it out like a loaf of bread. just running, trying to make a play. They didn't have good field position. They didn't have enough time, and they don't have receivers like that to be able to make big chunk plays easily. And they just gave the Broncos a free 3 points, and that 3 points was the margin of this game. Just a team that McDermott, for all that he does, he's very impressive in a lot of ways, being able to put together defenses that statistically are quite good considering the personnel. You talk about not having a great edge rusher. To me, like, where's the shutdown corner they've had? Like, they had Trey White, but he got injured very, very early in his career, and then he was shipped off. Like, he has not been a shutdown corner for the better part of 5 years. And you're talking about what other superstar corners? They've gotten corners undrafted and late in the draft that he's turned into good players, but shutdown corner, edge rusher, like superstar receiver, Diggs can be that. But I think the talent on this team, what you're talking about, has really been a deficit for a majority of Allen's career. Where I still point back to that 2021 season, the Rams won the Super Bowl in 2021. Mid-season, they acquired Von Miller, and Von Miller was a key component to that Super Bowl run. Mid-season, they sign off the street Odell Beckham after he was cut by the Browns, and OBJ was a key factor in that Super Bowl run. He was on pace to get Super Bowl MVP before he tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. He was being super impactful in that first half. If that Bills team had signed OBJ, had gotten Von Miller from the Broncos that year, I think that Bills team would have potentially won that 2021 Super Bowl, because they probably would have won the 13-second game. I think could have beat Joe Burrow that first year in the playoffs that they made the Super Bowl against the Rams. And then I think they beat the Rams because they have Von Miller, they have OBJ, and the Rams don't. Like, I think that those selectively aggressive moves they didn't make then, and the lack of selectively aggressive moves and good drafting that they've just failed on since then has been a really big struggle. Like, I think that there haven't been meaningful trades or great draft picks that have put this team over the edge. It just feels like it's Josh Allen, a good defense, and for a while it was Stephon Diggs. Now, like, James Cook is good, but James Cook, I think his production is really over what he is as a player. Like, he produced way more. He produced more rushing yards than Bijan. I don't think anybody is taking James Cook over Bijan. It's just like, you're not. You're not taking him over Jahmyr Gibbs, even though he has way more rushing yards than Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, it's just production at this point currently with James Cook, and he's a really good player. But the Bills have him, and Josh Allen is a superstar elite player, and then a lot of, oh, they're okay. Oh, yeah, they're pretty good. And so I agree with you that the drafting and developing and signing has been a struggle for them. So, of course, the thing the Bills do is fire their coach and give their GM more power and give him a promotion when they've been struggling to sign and acquire and draft talent. And that is the story of this Buffalo Bills team, along with Josh Allen's timely turnovers that ruined this game for them, along with Bo Nix getting injured. And so it was a lose-lose for both of these teams. But still got to give the Broncos credit for playing a good game overall and being able to pull out this game. Got to give them credit for that. They did a good job. Bo Nix played the best game potentially out of any quarterback in the divisional round. Even though he's out, like, he played a good game. Got to give him credit too there.
Yeah. I think, the Bills, I don't remember the last draft pick that the Bills have had other than James Cook that's been like, oh, man, that really worked out also, right? So, like, they drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round a few years back. Like, the Lions drafted Sam Laporta in the first round. I would take Sam Laporta over Dalton Kincaid every single day. Like, they trade with Kansas City so that Kansas City can get Xavier Worthy, and they end up drafting Keon Coleman. Now, if you want to, I even made the argument at the time, like, well, they liked Keon Coleman better than Xavier Worthy. They knew he would be there. They were able to get a little bit more capital doing it. Fine. However, you traded with the team that has always had your number in the playoffs since you've been back in the playoffs regularly. And then you draft a guy that hasn't turned out to be anything, right? Like, Maxwell Hairston. I was really high on Maxwell Hairston. What did he really do this year? Like these are, you address your position of need, but you don't do it well, then it's honestly worse than just leaving it alone altogether, because not only have you addressed it and failed, but you've wasted an opportunity to address something else. Um, and so yeah, so that's where I'm at with this Buffalo team. Like I said, Buffalo either makes the Super Bowl, and if not, they never will under Josh Allen, and that's kind of what I feel like I'm seeing. I think this head coaching hire is incredibly important if you're Buffalo. I think if you fire Sean McDermott and then hire Joe Brady, that makes no sense to me. Like, because you're not going to fire Sean McDermott unless you're like, you know what, we need significant turnover and significant change. And so if you do, and then you just keep the same guy in the building, who's probably going to keep a lot of the other same guys in the building, that's not good. There's talks of Brian Daboll because, he really helped develop Josh Allen. I hear that, but again, you're coming out of the same McDermott tree, which it's like that hasn't worked, and you decided that hasn't worked, so you need to get rid of him, right? Like, I would love to see this team go hire, a coach with a lot of defensive experience, not an offensive guy. The first thing I said when I saw this is like, look at Mike Tomlin's track record with terrible quarterback play over the last few years. Imagine if he had, a reigning MVP, which is dumbing it down too much, but still, it'll be interesting to see there. With the Broncos,
Bo Nix gets hurt. That's really tough, especially after having probably one of the best games of his young career, certainly one of his best games this year. It's unfortunate. It's a shame for the Broncos to lose him, and lose him in the freak way that they did. Like, he didn't even really like get hit that hard. It was just very, very odd. But that's how the sport goes. You've got Jarrett Stidham. All teams have backup quarterbacks for a reason, right? If there was no risk of your quarterback getting hurt, you wouldn't have a backup quarterback on the field, or on the roster, excuse me. So Jarrett Stidham is coming in. He has some, I mean, don't get me wrong, very, very, very little, but still some experience. I think that because of how good this defense is, that he's in a better situation than we've seen some other backup quarterbacks who have last minute had to come in the playoffs. So we'll see. We'll see what happens for Denver next week. But hey, props to them for winning. I mean, I've been a Denver hater all year, and said that they wouldn't even make a play or win a playoff game. So I have to eat crow on that one. Big props to them there.
Mm-hmm. I get you there. I got to give some credit to Bo Nix too, as far as like doing more with less. If we're looking at this Broncos offense, like, I think both you and I would agree that Sean Payton is a mastermind offensive schemer and coordinator. But Bo Nix's leading rusher for the Broncos was Bo Nix with 29 yards. And then you're talking after that about 4 carries, 21 yards for Jaleel McLaughlin, and 6 carries, 20 yards for RJ Harvey. Running backs combined 10 carries for 40 yards. Besides that, Bo Nix was the one running around making plays. We're talking about his receivers. Marvin Mims, good receiver, not great. Courtland Sutton, really good receiver, not a superstar, even though he's had good seasons in the past. And you're talking about Lil Jordan Humphreys, Pat Bryant, RJ Harvey in the receiving game. Like, I just don't think that this Broncos offense is that talented. And Bo Nix was able to win a shootout with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. I think if we're talking about Bo Nix and the Broncos going forward, this has to be like one of the top line things we're talking about. We're talking about a team that was able to beat Josh Allen in a playoff game, in a divisional game, in really impressive fashion, in overtime, in a shootout. Mm-hmm. Like, it being a shootout is not something to understate. When we're talking about this Buffalo team, it's a team that can score on anybody, and a team where you need to win via shootout because you're not going to hold Buffalo to 20 points or less. That just doesn't happen to this team. And Buffalo got their type of game. They got a shootout type of game and lost anyway, primarily because of Josh Allen's turnovers. But man, Bo Nix and the Broncos, like you said, like even though both of us have been underrating them this year, they've done a really, really, really good job in overachieving. And I think potentially, even with a backup, they might have a live shot against this Patriots team. It might be a great shot, but I think they're alive for this game based on that defense and how great that defense is. So I got to keep an eye out for them, I think, and Jarrett Stidham, who hasn't played well, but people like him. Sean Payton signed him for a reason. We'll see, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to this Patriots Texans game. Despite the score of the Seattle and San Francisco game, there's a chance that this was actually the worst game of the weekend. I would hear your argument if you wanted to argue that way. It was brutal. I mean, the conditions were horrendous. It was a day that you and I are far too familiar with, of an extremely cold, wet Massachusetts day. Not fun. Just for everybody who has not experienced it, it is probably the worst because it's so cold that you're like, well, just let it snow and be nice and pretty. And it's like, no, it's going to be just cold enough that you're going to be freezing, but not cold enough to snow, and it'll be rain. It's going to be rain. Just awful. The Texans were a team that I had in the Super Bowl because I thought their defense was good enough, and I thought that CJ Stroud, even if he did not have his best, that his average or even his slightly below average, combined with how amazing that defense is, was going to be good enough. That said, I don't think there's any defense that is good enough that can overcome 4 interceptions and a fumble lost in a game. The fact that I think it just goes to show how amazing the Texans defense is, that they only gave up 28 points despite how often the Texans were giving them extra possessions with good field advantage. But yeah, really the story of this game was CJ Stroud just CJ Stroud had the worst game of his career. And that probably includes college as well. I know he lost to Michigan a couple of times, but he never had a game this bad against Michigan when he lost those games. This is by far the worst game he's had in his career, both NFL and college. And I'd probably say high school as well. I don't think that's a massive stretch to say. And similar to the story of the Bills losing was turnovers, it's this same story with the Texans. That said, Drake May had a great game, 16 of 27 for only 180 yards, but 3 touchdowns. And you probably look at that and think like, oh man, only 180 yards. But if you think about the number of possessions they had already in Texans territory, like, it makes sense that this offense had a total of, under 250 yards, under 250 total yards, because they were getting the opportunity to start, inside the Houston 60-yard line, or inside the Houston 30-yard line. Like that's just that'll happen, right? So it's a weird one to diagnose because it's like, it's okay, well, was the Patriots defense just that good, or was CJ Stroud just that bad? Was the Patriots defense's performance repeatable, or was it that CJ Stroud's offensive performance is that bad? Like, is this something that we can anticipate, or was this the complete outlier for everyone? Which I'm leaning outlier, because again, worst possible, like literally worst game of CJ Stroud's career. The Patriots did what they had to do. They won in horrendous conditions and did what they had to do to win. The defense did show up for New England in the second half, because Houston had opportunities, and they just couldn't convert. So that is, like that is significant. What's really significant is that despite CJ Stroud throwing 4 interceptions in the first half, the score was only 21-10. Like, the game was not over. But, New England buckled down and did what they had to do. Mike Vrabel at New England has just always made sense. Like we talked about at this time 2 years ago when head coaches were being hired, like if they hadn't worked into their contract with Gerard Mayo that he was coming back and they knew that Vrabel was around, they obviously would have hired him. And so this has just always made sense. It's certainly, props to him for not going and taking a job, taking a year off, and just waiting to see what would show up. And lo and behold, the Patriots, team that he spent most of his career at with Drake May, was available. And this is just working out really, really well. For all the people preying on the Patriots' downfall, well, you should have won when you had the chance, because it seriously looks like under Mike Vrabel, the Patriots are back to stay as one of the top dogs in the AFC.
Mhm. I get you there. Man, this was a gross game, and the score is gross, and the game was gross. Where I think the top line thing, as you pointed out, CJ Stroud throwing 4 interceptions in the first half. What's nuts to me, this Texans defense is vaunted. What happens after those interceptions? In the first quarter, CJ Stroud's intercepted. What do the Patriots do with it? They get it. Ramondre Stevenson 5-yard run, and then they force a fumble. Texans get 0 points off of that interception. Next up, Texans get a ball intercepted. First play after a punt. Passes intercepted. It's a pick 6. Cool. So you just gave the Patriots a free 7 points. Like, that sucks. But, like, it's a pick 6. Things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that, they throw another interception. CJ Stroud does 4 plays later. What do the Texans defense do after that interception? They force a punt, a 3 and out, and the Patriots get 2 yards. After that, another interception after a Patriots touchdown. What do the defense do for the Texans? They force another 3 and out, another punt, 3 plays, 3 yards. So what we're talking about is this Texans defense giving up all these turnovers does the offense. And what does the defense do? They force a punt, a fumble, and then another punt after 3 of these. The pick 6 you can't do anything about. The defense wasn't on the field for the pick 6 for the Texans. But this Texans defense, after all of those turnovers, stood up and stood tall, because that Texans defense is full of badasses and a really good defense. It's unbelievable that when your quarterback is playing that badly, is playing Nathan Peterman-esque, and your defense is that badass where it's a 21-10 game at halftime, like you're saying. And then you're going into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, you make it 21-13, get a field goal. You make it 21-16, get another field goal. It's a 5-point game. Fourth quarter starts, Patriots get a clutch touchdown to force it 16-28. It's a 2-score game. The Texans need to do something. They punt the ball. On their next drive, they get it, and they punt the ball again, because on third down, it's 3rd and 10. It's a 2-score game. There are 5 minutes left. What do the Texans do on third down? CJ Stroud takes a horrendous sack, -8 yards, sets up 4th and 18, and they just punt. It's a 2-score game with 5 minutes left. You can't punt there, but the reason you punt there is because you put yourself in such a bad position with CJ Stroud taking that punt, where a 4th and 18 is basically a death knell anyway, but a punt is also a death knell. So you're just dead either way. And so the last 4 or 5 minutes of this game was just dead, where the Patriots just drain clock. Texans then turn it over on downs, and then the Patriots just drain more clock and the game's over, because it was a 2-score game and the Texans offense was just that bad. That is how bad it was, where the game was over with 5 minutes left, because the Texans offense could do nothing when their defense was that badass, where they were keeping it close for 3 quarters of the game, with their offense being the worst offense we've seen this entire playoffs, outside of the Steelers against the same Texans defense. Unbelievable. Just a ridiculous meltdown for a Texans team that people believed in. People picked them because of that defense, but their offense was just that bad. And CJ Stroud outdoors in the elements was terrible. That's all you got to say with it, I feel like.
Yeah, I think there is the world where you can, while recognizing that is reason number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Texans losing, you also can look at and see like, okay, they never had Joe Mixon this year. He was a large part of their success the previous year. Their top wide receiver in this game, Christian Kirk, like, he didn't have the most receptions, but in terms of name with most notoriety and most experience, right? Like, Jaden Higgins, Dalton Schultz, Xavier Hutchinson, Harrison Bryant, Christian Kirk were their top 5 receivers, and Woody Marks. The 6 of them had multiple receptions. Like, again, that is not absolving CJ Stroud of anything, but like, also, you can't just take this exact same team and exact same roster and be like, CJ Stroud get better and then we win the Super Bowl next year. Like, no, there are drastic improvements that need to be made on the offense. That offensive line needs a little help. It's not as bad as we thought it was going to be going into this year. I remember when we were doing our pre-draft needs for each team, we were like looking at Houston, we were like, offensive line, and offensive line are probably the top 3 needs. And they basically didn't address it in the draft. And so that offensive line played far better than we anticipated, but still there's stuff that if you're Houston, you need to regroup a little bit, around these certain places. Shout out to D'Amico Ryans though for the coaching job that he did this year. Like, this team at one point, I think they were like 1-4 maybe. Maybe not quite that bad. Maybe it's like 2-4. But still, they went on an insane run to end their season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 game win streak to end the year. Is significant and really, really turned that team around, and really drove them into the playoffs and got them some success and momentum to move forward with if you're Houston.
For sure.
All right, let's talk Seahawks 49ers. We've talked a lot, but it's okay. There isn't much to talk about the game itself. The Seahawks scored enough points to win this game in the first 12 seconds of the game, but they continued to pour it on and scored 34 more. With San Francisco, I mean, just the injuries, man. Like, it finally caught up to them. It's tough. It's part of sports, like, it's tough. I mean, these teams, they spend lots of money on trainers and doctors and strength and conditioning coaches, to do everything they can in the offseason to prevent stuff like this from happening. Obviously, some of those ligament injuries, are a little bit more out of control. But still, it's the nature of sports, man. Like, football is a violent game, and you're going to do terrible things to your body. And eventually it'll catch up in some ways. It's unfortunate that it worked out this way. But Seahawks, in dominant fashion, win this game. The real storyline about this, and it's one that we've mentioned before, Sam Darnold is in a position where all he really needs to do is just make sure that the car stays on the road. Because I think this defense is that good. He was 12 of 17 for 124 yards and 1 touchdown on was this Sunday or no, this was Saturday night. On Saturday night. And that was enough for them to win 41-6 because that defense is so good. It's if he is able to do that, if he is able to play average, then I think that the Seattle team is good enough to win it all. I think if he plays above average, they're certainly good enough to win it all. The question is, will he fall off? And if so, will it be as bad as CJ Stroud did this last week? Or will it be not quite as bad? Will it be as bad as Caleb Williams did this last week? In which case, I think the defense is still good enough that they can overcome that. But we saw from Houston, CJ Stroud, what he did, no defense is good enough to overcome that if Houston's defense isn't. So, Nick, what are your thoughts and feelings about the Seahawks team right now going into conference championship week?
The Seahawks team is really, really balanced, and I got to give them a lot of credit for that. This game, Kenneth Walker played a great game. Their defense played an amazing game. Their special teams played an amazing game. And their receiving game was just complimentary, and JSN didn't have a huge game. He had a touchdown, though. Cooper Kupp had a good game. Like, it was just complimentary football. This Seahawks team, I think, is so good where they can just play a good game and beat really good teams. That's what's crazy to me. That like they don't have to play a great game to win these games. The Rams, I think, potentially to beat Seattle will have to play a great game. I think the Patriots, if they face off against Seattle, the Patriots to win will have to play a great game. Like it just feels like some of these teams have to punch above their weight because their talent or their coaching or their quarterback play isn't all that. But I think this Seattle team is that talented where they don't even have to reach their ceiling to win the Super Bowl, like you're saying. And to me, what's crazy is we're talking about CJ Stroud and all these interceptions. CJ Stroud threw 4 interceptions, had a fumble. It was a terrible game by him. He was bad. For Sam Darnold, if I told you, I guarantee you that he only has 1 turnover, I think you'd take that in a heartbeat, probably, if you're a Seattle fan, if you're banking on Seattle. If I said Sam Darnold only has 2 turnovers, I think you might take that still. That's what's nuts about this Seattle team. That if I said to you, hey, I can guarantee you the number of turnovers Sam Darnold has is 2 turnovers. Not 4, not 0, just 2, which is still a lot of turnovers for modern day NFL. I think Seattle fans would take that in a heartbeat because they're saying two turnovers. That's not the 4 interceptions I've seen him throw against this Rams team. That's not the CJ Stroud-esque 5 turnovers that we saw against the Patriots. Like, this team is so good where Sam Darnold can play a bad game, 2 turnovers and like 1 touchdown, I think could be a stat line, like 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And they could win this game by 4 points, I think. Like, I think this team is that good. The defense is that good that he can play a mediocre to bad football game. And that's crazy because if we're talking about Super Bowl champions since 2000, for example, that 2000 Ravens team had bad quarterback play with why am I blanking on his name? Big white dude. I'm blanking on his name. I'll grab it later. And then like Peyton Manning in the 2015 Broncos, where Manning was not good that 2015 season. Trent Dilfer, that's his name. I got it. Trent Dilfer was not great that playoffs, but that defense was so good where they were able to just dominate. Peyton Manning in that 2015 no-fly zone, that defense in that team was so good where he didn't even have to be that good. Von Miller was able to dominate against Cam Newton and against the tackle, and they just did a great job playing as a whole team where Peyton Manning didn't have to be good. I think Darnold is better than 2015 Peyton Manning and better than 2000 Trent Dilfer, but like, what other Super Bowl teams and quarterbacks are we talking about? Like 2018 Tom Brady in that 13-3 game, like 2002 Brad Johnson. Like, this potentially could be one of the weakest quarterbacks since 2000 to win the Super Bowl. And they could win the Super Bowl handedly because the rest of the teams just aren't that good in the field either. They're good, but they're not great teams here. And that's crazy that that's what we're looking at with this Seattle team.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It'll be interesting to see, like this is they are really in a position, where it's like, hey, Sam, we don't need you to do much. And I think people are going to see that and then downplay it to like, oh, well, see, he's not actually that good. And it's like, if you don't need to put up a Herculean effort like Josh Allen, so you don't, and your team is incredibly successful, wins by 5 touchdowns in a playoff game, like, so what? Like if you do what you're told and what you're told leads to that, so what? Like that's success. Success looks differently depending on who you are and what is required of you. So, I think the same can be said, like when people talk about like, oh my gosh, Fernando Mendoza didn't deserve the Heisman. It's like, he was an incredible quarterback on the best team in college football. His numbers weren't flashy. They didn't need to be. Like, he did what he was asked to do and did what was needed to do for them to go 16-0 and win a national championship at Indiana, right? Like, so what if it does, if, you know, he didn't have a play like Johnny Manziel did where he runs into his O lineman and the ball gets popped up in the air and then he catches it and runs around and throws a touchdown. You know, like that he didn't need to do that to win. You know, like don't punish the guy for that. So,
Mhm.
all right, quickly. AFC Championship game. Denver, New England. Who do you have?
I think it's got to be New England. They're just the healthier team. Drake May's been incredibly trustworthy. I think that the Broncos, as I said earlier, I think they're alive here. I just think that the Patriots and this coaching staff is actually what wins this game. Where I think that Sean Payton versus most coaching staffs has an advantage, but I don't think this Patriots coaching staff is one where you can go, we're going to win on the margins. We're going to win the special team, the turnover battle. Drake May's too good of a quarterback. Mike Vrabel's too good of a head coach. And McDaniels is too good of an OC. Like, those are just too good of dudes who aren't going to let you force a bunch of turnovers in this game or special teams plays, fake plays, that you're going to be able to pull one over on them, I think. I think that it could turn out to be a one-score game. I don't think this is going to look like a blowout, and so I think this is going to be competitive, but I'm going to go Patriots here, which is shocking that they made the Super Bowl 2018, completely fell off, rebuilt, and are going to be back in the Super Bowl potentially here with Drake May, all within the span of 7 years. It's nuts to me that this is where we're at with this Patriots team, but got to go Patriots here.
I'm also going to go Patriots. You think about how nuts that is, and think about if they hadn't had the like 2-3 years wasted with the Mac Jones, Bill Belichick thing. Like, they could have done this in 5, you know, like, which is just nutty to think about. I'm also going to go New England for all the reasons that you said. I'm sorry, I still don't believe in this Broncos team. I can't take you seriously when you beat the Raiders by a field goal 10-7 on Thursday Night Football. I can't. This is not this Raiders team. It's not like it was the Derek Carr Raiders teams that were skirting around the playoffs a little bit or even making the playoffs. No. No, sorry. Cannot do it. Cannot
Geno
believe in
Smith
you.
Raiders.
Yeah,
Not
nope,
convincing.
not gonna happen. So give me the Patriots as well. Nick, I am taking the Seahawks, of course, because I do have them as my Super Bowl pick. I'm also taking them because no team has ever lost to Kirk Cousins in a regular season and made it to the Super Bowl, and the Rams have lost to Kirk Cousins this year.
Oh my God.
So that's just the little cherry on top to my argument to why I think it's Seattle.
Mm-hmm. I get you there. I've been riding with the Rams this year, and I want to ride with the Rams really badly. But I just feel like home field advantage, it's going to be wet. It's going to be outdoors. You're going to have a bunch of loud screaming fans there in Seattle. The Rams have looked vulnerable. I'm curious. The only hesitation I have about Seattle is as the lights get brighter, does Sam Darnold get worse? Like, he's obviously not played great, but does it just go as the pressure ramps up, Sam Darnold just goes like down and down and down? Like, we could see that. Do I believe that that's going to happen? I'm going to go with no and going to go with Seattle here, even though I do think that the Rams have a really good shot. I just think that the talent deficit and the cracks in the armor that we saw the Bears defense show is something that Mike Macdonald and the Seattle defense should take advantage of. So I'm going to go Seattle here.
All right. Well, there we are. We both have New England and Seattle in the Super Bowl. Crazy to think that both of those teams will have completely rebuilt and made it to the Super Bowl as quickly as they did after having massive fall-offs. But it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens this week. Enjoy the games. Let us know what you think and your predictions in the comments down below, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one, everybody.